Okay, so any charged particle, okay, any charged particle will always have a electrical field around it. Okay, any charged particle will have a electrical field around it. Whenever this charged particle starts moving, whenever this charged particle starts moving, it will have a magnetic field around it. So charged particles, examples of charged particles are positively charged protons, or negatively charged electrons. These are all the charged particles. So if an electron moves, it will produce a magnetic field around it. If a proton moves, it will produce a magnetic field around it. Okay, so any moving charge will produce a magnetic field around it. So we will see a magnetic field which is usually a perpendicular to the electrical field. So any charge will produce a electrical field, any moving charge will produce a magnetic field. But if there is an acceleration or deceleration in the charge, it will produce electromagnetic radiation. Okay, acceleration or deceleration of charges will lead to production of electromagnetic radiation. Now, this electromagnetic radiation is nothing but the X-rays. So, X-rays can be produced by acceleration or deceleration of an electrical charge. And whenever we move a electrical charge, whenever it is moving, we will produce a magnetic field. Now, we need to understand this to understand how MRI machine produces the magnetic field. Now we have a proton, which is a charged particle. If it is moving, it will produce a magnetic field, and also electron, if it moves, it will produce a magnetic field. Now hydrogen atom is the abundant atom in the body, because any molecule starting from the water to fatty acid to a protein, everything contains hydrogen molecule. That's why we need the hydrogen atom is what we consider. Now there is a principle of the spin and the precision. Now what is this spin and what is this precision? Now whenever a molecule rotates on a axis, central axis, it is called as the spin. Now whenever this axis rotates with a center of with the center to it, it is called as precision. So this is the axis. Now, the hydrogen molecule is rotating around it. This is called spin. Now, if this axis rotates around a central line, that is called as precision. Don't worry, I have the slides. So this is nothing but what we are seeing here is nothing but the spin. It is rotating around its own axis. But if it starts rotating around, the axis starts rotating, this is called as a precision. Okay, now this principle was introduced by Felix Bloch and Edward Mills Purcell. So what they did is they kept all the molecules inside a tube, and they passed magnetic field around it. So they passed the magnetic field, they kept the magnetic coil around it. And then they found that there are different molecules were having different spins. Okay, so this different molecules having different spins is nothing but this is called as nuclear magnetic resonance. Nuclear because the spin is seen in the proton which is present in the center of an atom in the nucleus. So this proton was showing some type of precision. Now this is what is observed by the Bloch and Purcell, and this is how they introduced this nuclear magnetic resonance, which was later used in the formation of image by few other scientists. Okay, now first thing we have to understand is the term Tesla. What we use Tesla is nothing but the magnetic flux. Now what is magnetic flux? Whenever we have a surface area, the number of magnetic field that passes through it is called as the magnetic flux, or Tesla. Okay, it is called as magnetic flux. This magnetic flux is nothing but Tesla. Now this is the SI unit of the magnetic field, and 1 Tesla is equal to 10,000 Gauss. Okay, 1 Tesla is equal to 10,000 Gauss is other unit of the magnetic field. Now usually we call it a 1.5 to 3 Tesla is the regular magnetic MRI that we use. And what is Tesla is nothing but the magnetic flux, and flux is nothing but the number of magnetic fields passing per unit area, and 1 Tesla is nothing but 10,000 Gauss. Okay, now initially what they did was they produced the permanent magnetic field, the magnets. Now this permanent magnet magnets are similar to our refrigerator magnets, which will stick whenever we take it close to a metal. And this had a magnetic fields which is going from down to upwards. Okay, it is going from the perpendicular to the patient will be lying like this. It is going perpendicular to the patient and from posterior to anterior. So this is how the magnetic field was in this kind of permanent magnetic field. But the problem with this permanent magnet was this was too heavy. That is the one thing. The second thing, what the problem here was, this was producing only up to 4 Tesla magnetic field. So it was very less for a good image. So it was producing only 4 Tesla and it was heavy. These were the two things why the magnetic field, permanent magnet MRI was not used anymore. And this was having this typical horseshoe shape. This was having typical horseshoe shape with the magnet kept above and below the patient. So this is a type of magnet what was used, that is the permanent magnet. And this is how the magnetic field was going from posterior to anterior where the patient is lying. Now, if you see the future after this permanent magnet, what they did is they created the magnetic field using multiple coiled wires. They passed current through these coiled wires. So the electrons, current is nothing but the movement of electrons. So it will produce a magnetic field. So that was the magnetic field which was produced. But the problem with this was the electrical current, the wires had very high resistance. Okay, any wire will have very high resistance. It will produce a lot of heat. Now this heat is nothing but the loss of energy or the loss of electric current. So because of this, we need to supply a lot of current for this magnet, which is these are called as the resistive magnets. These are called as a resistive magnets. This is the second type of the MRI that they produce using these wires. Okay, they passed current through it, which started giving resistance. So very high resistance, lot of heat production. So it was requiring a lot of current. So this kind of MRI is called as resistive magnet MRI. And this kind of MRI failed because it required very high current, so very high working cost, and also a lot of heat was produced, and it was causing a lot of damage to the machine. Now, to remove this resistance, we need to produce some wires which doesn't produce any resistance. So what they did is they produced a alloy. Now this alloy is made up of niobium titanium alloy was produced. This niobium titanium alloy was used as a supermagnet. So why it is used as, what is supermagnet? It's nothing but it has no resistance. Okay, it has no resistance. And when does this will have no resistance? At minus 290 degrees Celsius. At minus 290 degrees Celsius, this niobium titanium coil was having no resistance. Now when we pass an electric current through this coil, it was producing very high magnetic field, but it is having very low resistance. Whenever there is no resistance, there is no heat produced. So there is, whenever there is no heat produced, there is no loss of current. So if I'm telling there is no loss of current, now if I put a electric current, okay, 10 ampere of electric current into this coil, it will be rotating in this coil, but it will never disappear because there is no resistance, there is no loss of current in this. So in a supermagnet, we are activating the supermagnet by passing some current, and we'll remove this external current and connect this, we will connect this wires. So there will be a circuit which is formed where there is continuous flow of this current, and this will have no loss of current because there is no heat production. Okay, so that is supermagnet and supermagnet type of MRI. Now how do I create this? By creating a niobium titanium alloy. Now how do niobium titanium alloy becomes a superconducting? At minus 290 degrees Celsius. Now how do I produce this 290 degrees Celsius? By keeping it in the helium. Okay, now by keeping it in the helium, helium is acting as a cryogen here. Okay, helium is maintaining the cold temperature in this niobium titanium coil. So we have this niobium titanium coil kept inside the helium, which will make the niobium titanium coil to act as a superconductor, which will produce the magnetic field inside the magnet as well as outside the magnet, because it is a coil, it is forming around it. Now whatever the magnetic field formed will be parallel to the patient, or the patient will be lying like this, the magnetic field will be parallel to the patient. Now we can also see that the magnetic field is outside the patient as well, outside the magnetic machine. Now these fields are outside the magnetic field is called as a fringe field. Okay, whatever the magnetic field which is present outside the MRI gantry is called as the fringe field. Now this fringe field is what the magnetic field that I don't want to have. Okay, so now this fringe field, what will happen is, if I take any material which is attracted by a magnet, if I keep it inside this fringe field, it will be rapidly attracted by this gantry, and it will hit the gantry and it will cause damage to the MRI machine. Also, it can damage the patient as well. So this is how the magnetic field around the MRI gantry is called as a fringe field. Now, there is one specific measurement that we need to know, that is a phi Gauss line. Now this phi Gauss line is outside the magnetic field after the field lines. So beyond this phi Gauss lines, we can take the magnetic the material that is attracted by the magnetic field, and this phi Gauss line should be inside our MRI room. Okay, it should be inside the room where the gantry is placed. Now outside this, the phi fringe field should be inside the MRI room. So we should not take anything inside this room because it is under the phi Gauss line. So this will be one Gauss line. The innermost will be the one Gauss line, two Gauss line, three Gauss line, four Gauss line, and five Gauss line. So this inside this phi Gauss line, we should not take any magnet, the materials that is being attracted by the magnet. So this is the importance of the phi Gauss line. Okay, so we had a permanent magnet which produced very low fringe fields, the horseshoe shaped magnet, which was very heavy, but it was producing very low magnetic field. Resistive magnet also was producing very low fringe fields. It was less heavier than the permanent magnet, but it was also producing very low magnetic field, same like permanent magnet. Then came the superconducting, and it had high running cost. Then came the superconducting magnets. So in this superconducting magnets, there is a term called quenching. I'll tell you what is quenching. Okay, now then it was also less heavier, so weighing around 10 tons, and it was producing very high magnetic field. We can produce up to 3 Tesla to 7 Tesla magnetic field. Okay, any doubts till now? So these are the 3 different types of the magnetic field. Okay, so the cryogen that was used is nothing but the helium and the nitrogen, which was maintaining 4 Kelvin or minus 290 degree Celsius. Okay, this is the temperature. So that's very simple about the magnet that is used. So magnet used in MRI, this is what we have to write. Okay, now let's see how the patient is placed. Now I have told that patient is placed parallel to the magnetic coils. So this is how the patient is placed parallel to the magnetic coils. Now this axis is called as a Z axis. From the head to the leg of the patient, this axis is called as a Z axis. Now the other axis perpendicular to this is called as a X and Y axis. Okay, so we have 3-dimensional the picture now. So Z axis is very important. It is along the magnetic coil. So it is parallel to the magnetic field that is produced. So B0 is nothing but the magnetic field that is produced by the superconducting magnetic coil. So this B0 is nothing but the magnetic field produced by the superconducting coil. Now the patient lying is also in this direction. The head will be here, the leg will be here. So this axis is called as the Z axis. Okay, so we know how the patient is lying. He is lying parallel to the B0, and any axis perpendicular to it is called as the X and Y axis. So now there are different types of coils that are used. So the first thing is, we know that there is this superconducting coil, which is the niobium titanium alloy, which is kept in the helium to maintain minus 290 degrees Celsius or 4 Kelvin temperature. And This will produce a magnetic field in a z axis with the north pole and south pole, and then deeper to it we have a magnetic coil. This is called as a gradient coil. Okay, we have a coil deeper to it. This is called as a gradient coil. Okay, deeper to this gradient coil we have the body RF coil. So these are nothing but the RF coils, and these are called as body RF coils because they are placed in inherent in the gantry, and there's very large coils. They measure the entire, they are used for the entire body, so they're called as body RF coils. Then there are surface RF coils. Okay, surface RF coils are separate coils. We can keep it anywhere on the body surface of the patient. So there are two types of the RF coil. One RF coil is incorporated into the gantry. It is called as the body coil. There are so many other types of RF coils. They are used in the rest of the body. So just remember that there are three types of the coils used. One is a superconducting magnet, which is a coil, and then there is a gradient coil, and then there is an RF coil. Okay, so there is three types of coils. Now, if you ask me what are the uses of these coils, now gradient coil is used for the localization. Gradient coil is used for the localization of the tissue. Okay, how this gradient type coil is used for the localization, I'll tell in the next class. RF coil is used to send and receive the signals. Okay, to stimulate and receive the signals, which I'll explain now. Okay, so there are different type of coils. One is the superconducting magnet itself. Then there is gradient coil, RF coil from outside to inside. Now, if this is how it's arranged again, outside is the magnet, then the gradient coil, then the RF coil, then RF coils are also used on the surface in the different names. Okay. Now, this is how a normal MRI gantry looks. It will have a gantry which is containing helium. Then there will be there is a case. Then inside that there will be helium filled helium container. Inside this helium container, we have this niobium titanium coil. Then this entire thing is connected to something called as cold head. Okay, the cold head is responsible for maintaining the temperature, negative temperature in this helium chamber. Okay, so this is containing helium. Now this helium can get heated up because this niobium titanium coils are not ideal superconductors. They will have a little bit of resistance, so it will have little heat production. Whenever there is heat production, what will happen to this minus 290 degrees Celsius helium? It will start getting heated up. Whenever this will start getting heated up, it will undergo vaporization. Now this vapors will lead to loss of this helium. So if there is loss of this helium, there is no 290 degree minus 290 degrees temperature is maintained. Now what will happen? The coils will get high resistance. Whenever coils get high resistance, what happens? There will be heat production, loss of current, shutdown of MRI. Now this is nothing but as quenching. The stopping of this MRI coil, or the stopping of this magnetic field production by the superconducting coil is called as quenching. Now, this kind of quenching can be done by, so this kind of quenching can be done by, it can happen this automatically. Why this automatical quenching happens? Because this is getting heated up, resistance increases. So heat production, loss of current, that is automatic quenching. Now, there is some button called as every MRI the acquisition room has a switch called as a quench. Okay, now this quenching switch is for whenever there is an emergency, some patient is stuck between a trolley and the MRI gantry. Now immediately we need to remove the trolley to save the patient. We have to press this quench button, but each time we press this quench button, we cost up to 80 lakh rupees for the hospital. Okay, so that much is the money that you have to spend to rebuild this MRI, the superconducting MRI gantry. Okay, so repeat quenching. Okay, so the quenching is nothing but, okay, someone is asking to repeat the quenching. See, now this is the MRI magnetic coil. Okay, this magnetic coil is made up of This is a superconducting magnetic coil. Why is it superconducting? Because I am using niobium titanium coil. Now, when will this niobium titanium coil will be superconducting? When it is at minus 290 degrees Celsius. Now, when this is at minus 290 degrees Celsius, it is superconducting. It should not have any resistance. Ideally, it should have zero resistance. But we cannot create zero resistance. There will be minimal resistance. There will be minimal resistance. Now, whenever there is minimal resistance, slowly this will be producing heat. Slowly the coil will be producing heat. Now, this heat will go diffuse into the helium or the neon, whatever you used for the as a cryogen. Now, this cryogen will undergo heated up. This cryogen will undergo heated up. Now, this will lead to vaporization of this helium or loss of this minus 290 degrees Celsius. Whenever there is loss of this minus 290 degrees Celsius, what will happen to the resistance here? The resistance keep on increasing. Whenever the resistance increases, the electric current that we have passed inside this coil will be lost. Now, this is when the MRI gantry will be shut down. Okay, this is when the MRI gantry will stop producing magnetic field. Now, again, if I have to produce magnetic field, again, I have to fill it with the helium, the liquid helium at minus 290 degrees Celsius. I have to connect a wire to this and I have to pass a current till it becomes the required current, till it acquires the required magnetic field, till it requires a 1.5 Tesla. I have to continuously pass current and then we can disconnect this wire. So all this process together costs around 80 lakh rupees, the refilling of the helium and the repairing of the wires, and then passing the current to this coil and producing this will cost 80 lakhs, around 80 to 90 lakh rupees. So that's the problem of quenching. So the quenching can happen by two things. One is it can happen because this continuous heat production and whatever the liquid helium getting vaporized should be avoided. Okay, we should stop from this helium from getting vaporized. If we don't stop this liquid helium from getting vaporized or getting heated up, it will undergo quenching. That is the stopping of MRI machine. Now, this can be happening by two things. One is by, so now how will we stop this helium from getting vaporized? Now, there is a helium inside this, around this coil. Now, if it is getting repeatedly heated up, the vapor will go into the cold head. Okay, the vapor will go into the cold head, and this cold head has the capacity to cool back this helium. Now, whenever this cold head cools back this helium, the helium will be refilled into the tank. So whatever the vapor is formed, it will be refilled into this tank. That is the work of this cold head. Okay, so this cold head is nothing but it will convert this vapor helium back into the liquid helium, and it will make sure that this helium is not emptied, but still there will be some amount of the helium which will be lost. Now that should be refilled at regular interval. Okay, when it reaches a particular level, that if there is 90% of loss of helium, then we have to refill it. So this is not exact value. There is particular value at which we should regularly refill the helium in this helium tank. Okay, so that is the use of this cold head. And now this entire thing will be connected to a helium tank, which will not be present in the MRI room, which will be present outside the MRI room. This helium tank will be present outside the MRI room, and it will be connected through a pipe. And this helium tank will be continuously filling the helium container inside here, and it will be keep making sure that the helium is always full. Okay, so this is about the helium tank, the cold head, and the superconducting niobium titanium coil, and minus 290 degrees Celsius that we have to maintain. Now, also inside this the helium tank, there is one more coil. This is called as the shim coil. Now, okay, so this entire the helium container is protected by a cold shield, which will prevent the cold temperature being lost, like a thermos flask. Okay, it will prevent the coldness from being lost. Now, this is nothing but the cold shield. Now, inside this, there is also one more coil. Now, this is nothing but the shim coil. Now, what does this shim coil do? Now, all our MRI machine works on one principle, that is, we maintain a uniform magnetic field. Whatever the magnetic field, it might be a 1 Tesla MRI. We assume that this magnetic field produces a uniform magnetic field with 1.5 Tesla MRI. Okay. or if it is a 3 Tesla MRI, the entire thing is uniformly 3 Tesla. At every point, if I measure, the magnetic field is 3 Tesla. But producing this magnetic field is very difficult by only the superconducting coil. Whenever we produce the superconducting coil, it will produce a magnetic field which is almost equal to 1.5 Tesla. There will be some area which will have higher magnetic field, some area there will be lower magnetic field. Now, how will I make these areas with higher magnetic field have lower strength and lower field with higher strength? By a technique called as shimming. Now, the shimming can be done by two things. One is the active shimming, one is the passive shimming. Okay, the active shimming is when we keep one more coil which can adjust the magnetic field in the required places. Okay, if you put the coil in the same direction as the previous magnetic field, the magnetic fields add up. If I put in the reverse magnetic field, it will reduce. So this is the active shimming. The passive shimming is we can keep some metal products within the magnetic field. This is done when the production of the MRI gantry is done. So some metal pieces are kept inside the gantry, which will induce a magnetic field, and this will be also helping in changing the magnetic field in the places where it is required. Now, whenever we put the patient inside the magnetic field, inside this gantry, whenever I put the patient inside this gantry, I place a patient inside the gantry. Now, the patient is having multiple hydrogen atoms, and each hydrogen atom acts like a magnet. So even the patient will be responsible for changing the magnetic field. Patient also causes some alteration in the magnetic field. This is also adjusted by the shim coils. So these shim coils are always active. So whenever we put the patient, it will detect what is the change in the magnetic field. Then this shim coil will readjust the magnetic field so that we get a uniform magnetic field. So all the imaging that we do are based on the principle of having a uniform magnetic field. So we assume that there is a uniform magnetic field, and then we make all the images and we reconstruct the images. So that is about the shim coils. I hope everyone understood what is a shim coil, what is shimming, what are the types of shimming, what are the shim coils, and how are they used regularly. So whenever we start any any imaging modalities, once we put the patient, the shim coils will automatically correct the magnetic field. It will try to get it to the ideal magnetic field, and then we'll start the imaging. So that are the different parts of the magnetic the gantry. Okay, now going on to the protons. Now, the protons are charged particle. Okay, the protons are the charged particles, positively charged particle. It is a property of any proton to have a spin. Okay, any element in this nature, it will always have a spin. That's how they are all stable. The spin is a normal nature of any protons. Okay, in any atom, they'll be always having a spin. But when I keep this proton in a magnetic field, so this is a moving charge. So this moving charge will produce a magnetic field. Okay, so this moving charge is producing a magnetic field. So that is seen in any protons. Okay, any proton is having a spin. So spin is nothing but a charged particle is moving. A moving positively charged particle is continuously moving. So it will produce a magnetic field. So this moving charge has produced a magnetic field. Now, if I keep the small magnetic field in a gravitational force or in another magnetic field, what happens? So this is spinning top. Okay, what we are seeing here is a spinning top. Okay, it is not having any angular motion. It is spinning at a straight line, but it is rotating around its own axis. Okay, that is called spin. Now what happens if I do this in a gravity less place? Okay, everyone just rejoin whenever this might get disconnected in 10 minutes. Please rejoin after when it gets disconnected. Okay, everyone, this will get disconnected in 10 minutes. Please rejoin the class in 10 minutes. Okay, yeah. So this is called as this is nothing but the spin. Now, if the same thing, if I keep in a space, okay, where there is no gravitational force, if I do this in a space, this will be continuously rotating. This will be continuously rotating, and when this is rotating, it will not have any angular motion, but this is exactly how it will be rotating continuously. It will not end because there is no force acting around it in the space, because there is no atmosphere. So the spin won't reduce, and there is no gravitational force. Now the same thing, if I keep in a gravitational force, see, we always see the spin is having this toppling motion. Now this is nothing but this is what is called as a precession. Okay, this is what is precession. Now why is this getting a precession? This is getting a precession is because of the gravitational force. This is getting precession because of the gravitational force. So there is a gravitational force which is responsible for this precession. Remember this principle. The same principle holds good even in a magnetic field. The magnetic field has a spin. So this magnetic field has a spin. Sorry, any proton has a spin. Sorry, I got distracted by a call. Okay, any proton has a spin. Now this proton, when I keep it in the magnetic field, it will have this angular motion, and this kind of angular motion is called as a precession. So I hope everyone understood what is precession and what is spin. Okay, so that is about the precession, and this precession is directly proportional to the magnetic field that we have produced. Okay, it is directly proportional to the magnetic field that we have used. So if 1.5 Tesla has one spin, in 3 Tesla it will have a higher spin. Okay, now this kind of spin is directly proportional to the magnetic field, and this is given by the formula. This is called as a gyromagnetic, the precession formula. It's called as Larmor equation. Okay, so this is nothing but the precession. Now I'll show you what is precession. If it is moving around its own axis, if it is moving around its own axis, it was a spin. Now it is moving at an angle, the axis itself is moving. This is called as precession. Now this precession is in a 0.5 Tesla MRI, it is 21.3 megahertz. But if I use a 1.5 Tesla MRI, then there will be 63.9 megahertz. So it was smaller here. As I increase the magnetic field, the precession also increase. So precession is directly proportional to the magnetic field. So we know that precession, frequency of precession is directly proportional to the magnetic field, and it is, to remove the proportionality, we always use a gyromagnetic ratio. It is constant for a given molecule. So it is constant for a particular atom. Like a hydrogen will have a fixed gyromagnetic ratio. But what is differing is the magnetic field. How is it differing? In 1.5 Tesla, it is a lower magnetic field. In 3 Tesla, it is a higher magnetic field. So precession changes based on the magnetic field that we use. Okay. Now, if okay, so that's about the precession. Now, what exactly happens is, now there is a theory of phase, in phase and out phase. Now, if we consider there are two sigmoid curves, okay, so there is one and there is a second one. Okay, sorry. So there are two sine waves. So there are two sine waves. This is the first one. Now there is a second one. Okay, now both are going at the same speed, and their troughs are meeting with each other. The troughs are meeting with each other. So what will happen? The net magnetic field will be a bigger, the sine wave will be in a bigger sine wave at the same level. Now the same thing if I do, the same thing if I have in the different phase. Now they are all in the different phase. Now what is happening? The trough is meeting the depression here. The peak is meeting the depression. So there will be loss of the field, and whatever the net we get will be smaller. So what this tells us is, whenever the waves are not in the same phase, they'll be lost. Now the same thing will happen here. Now these are having precession. These are having precession. Okay, but every molecule will not have a same precision. This is because I have told you that every proton or every atom will have a nucleus which will have protons. these protons will act like a small magnetic field. Now in water, there will be two hydrogen atoms. In fat, there will be multiple hydrogen atoms. Okay, there will be multiple hydrogen atoms. There will be multiple carbon and multiple hydrogen atoms. So there is different molecules, all contains protons. Now these all will act like a small magnetic field, and they will induce a slightly different magnetic field in all of these molecules. Okay, this water will induce a different the change in the hydrogen atom, the precision, compared to a fat, which will produce a slightly different hydrogen atom precision. Or within this fat, within the fat, hydrogen atom, the first hydrogen atom will experience a different magnetic field. We have the magnetic field produced by the MRI machine. Also it will experience the magnetic field by these molecules. It may be Bx. Okay, so that's the first hydrogen atom. The second hydrogen atom will also experience, along with the B0, maybe By. So each hydrogen atom is getting slightly different magnetic field because of the adjacent molecules. So because of this, what will happen is each molecule will be rotating at a different speed. Okay, each molecule will be rotating at a different speed. So if one molecule is precessing here, the other will be in the front, one more will be in the back, and one more will be more front, and one more will be more back. If the fastest being in the more front and the slowest being the more back. So this is how different molecules will be having different precision. So there is one molecule here, there is one molecule here, there is one molecule here, there is one molecule here. Now this magnetic field is always a vector. Now whenever there is a vector, each vector we can divide it into two components. Okay, in a vertical and a horizontal components. Okay, so this is the magnetic field. We can divide it into a horizontal component and a vertical component. So it is divided into two. The same way, if you take the second the molecule, so that is this molecule, the precision of this molecule, it can also be put like this. It will have a horizontal component and a vertical component. Same way, now if I take one more, this one, again it will have a horizontal and vertical component. Now if you see the net effect, all the components in this axis will get cancelled, and we'll get this one magnetization in this longitudinal direction. Now this is called as a longitudinal magnetization. So whenever I keep a patient inside a gantry, all these molecules will align themselves, and there will be a net magnetization which is produced, which is called as a longitudinal magnetization. Okay,